When threats emerge in the universe. When conquerors approach and the danger is high. When you have to face powerful rulers who want nothing less than complete control of the universe. Then you have to come together and work as a team. You have to dig deep, find your resolve and your courage. You have to understand your enemies and how to stand against them. You have to be bold, decisive, and brave. And you have to be ready to be part of the universe's most legendary defender. Then, when the universe needs you, you can form Voltron, the greatest hope of the universe. Coming to a role-playing game made by Catalyst Game Labs, publisher of acclaimed games including Shadowrun and Cosmic Patrol. Catalyst brings an all-new rule system that emphasizes the teamwork at the heart of Voltron, and also allows for awesome displays of power from the universe's greatest defender. Whether you want to play in the original Defender of the Universe setting or the newer Legendary Defender series, a core book will be available for your preferences to help you explore a galaxy full of adventure. While the core game focuses on the paladins who join together to form Voltron, you can play as other characters such as nobles, cadets, or members of the Blade of Mamora, spinning out galaxy-spanning stories that encounter all manner of planets, creatures, and possible threats. The dice core system used in Voltron, the role-playing game, is easy to learn and use while providing great depth of play. As you roll a pool of 3 dice determined by your skills and attributes, your decisions and circumstances can make those dice better or worse, so what you choose can have an instant impact. Act now and join the fight to defend the universe.
Sea of Legends! Become a pirate on the open waters of the Caribbean. Fire broadside, plunder ships, fight the undead, and maybe break a few hearts. In this light-hearted deck-building RPG, you'll chart your own course to infamy as you climb from scallywag to pirate king. Become the scourge of the seas. Lead your crew to victory with tactical maneuvers and the deadly abilities of your card deck. Make alliances with the crowns of Europe so that you have friendly ports to sell your plunder and taverns to hire crews from. And your crew be a colorful lot, each with unique skills and tales to tell. Pursue their quests to add powerful new cards to your deck. You'll be needing those cards in battles against the soldiers of Europe, denizens of the deep, and those from beyond the grave.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tuesday Newsday. I'm back from my travels, so excited to be on with you, and I've got a really exciting guest today. Hi Jordan.
Hey Rem, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. For those who don't know, like I didn't until we were in the middle of a fireside chat with Jordan and Michael Stackpole. Jordan is the creator of BattleTech and Shadowrun, and a million other things.
Yeah, well, I'm old, so I've been making up stuff for a long time. So yes.
Well, really excited to have you here. I know we've got a new project to talk about for you.
Indeed.
But I also want to chat with our audience and kind of give them a little insight into you and your career and how you got to this point and what's coming next. But we have news first. We got to do the news.
That's what it's after all. It's called Tuesday Newsday,
right?
So you gotta start there.
I called Jordan this morning. I'm like, want to come on Tuesday Newsday? He's like, what's that? So, backer update for the Mercenaries Kickstarter just went out, I think about an hour, maybe 2 ago now. So, this is backer update 99. So check it out if you haven't seen it already. That's got all of your news on where the process is. So I'm not gonna read it to you guys, but if you have questions that aren't clear from the backer update or anything like that, feel free to put them in chat. I'm not sure if Tyler is with us today, but we can always circle back. So, Tyler, you should say hi if you're here. Events. We've got a lot of events. October's a busy month for conventions. It's almost as busy as like July, August for conventions. So we've got Randall is already, I think he's in Budapest today for his world tour, and then Essen is in Germany on, I think, October 7th. So if you're in Europe, you want to make your way over, see Randall, shake his hand, get one of those Reunification World Tour patches, you can meet him there. So that's pretty exciting. He is also then going to be headed to PAX Australia immediately after Essen. So we've got a little bit of some international travel and visiting our fans worldwide.
Dude gets around.
Right? Yeah, it's grown. Last year we checked out PAX Australia. We just sent someone to walk through and see if it was worth it. We sent Talon, and he said that it was worth it. So yeah, it's and yeah, I see Turbo Turtle. Randall did make a little trip into Ukraine, and the story is wild. I'm gonna let him come on and tell it at some point and share it with you guys. But his travels, he's just constantly in awe of the BattleTech community, how many people love this game, and how many people make their way across a war-torn country just to say hi to him and play some BattleTech. So it's wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Little trivia thing was actually I went to Australia to play BattleTech with people like very early in its history. It was at there was a game convention in Collins, and I wove it into my honeymoon. So
Smart.
It's like, hey dear, you don't mind if I were in Australia, or we're gonna go to Australia because of doing this little game con. So yes, we played BattleTech on my honeymoon.
That's so awesome. Neat. Oh, I love that. Cool. All right. So in addition to PAX Australia and Essen, we have 2 more conventions in October. So late October, we have GameholeCon in Madison, Wisconsin. So this is an RPG-focused con, so we're going to be heavy on the Shadowrun. We've got some fun surprises for you guys. We are going to have a booth outside of the vendor hall that's going to have neon lights. We've got some of those hollow fans we're trying to figure out how to program so that we can get some cool AR-type advertisements up for you guys. And we'll be demoing Voltron, the RPG, which you guys saw in the preview, Frostpunk, the RPG, and then Shadowrun right there at the booth. But then also, GameholeCon is super special because you get a lot of, it's where the industry goes to play. So you can do special guest games with a lot of our of industry professionals. So we're bringing the line developer RJ Thomas to play Shadowrun with you guys. So you'll be able to do that. World of Shadows, that season 1 has finished over on Six Sides of Gaming, but the entire cast is going to be there. So we're going to do a one-shot of World of Shadows live from GameholeCon, so you can come join us for that. And then Jason Hardy, the RPG developer, will be at the booth and running demos for Voltron, Frostpunk, and Shadowrun as well. So, and then there's going to be regular games too. We have double, I think, the games that we had last year and extra GMs. So there's a whole lot more Shadowrun happening. There's still some BattleTech happening as well. It's just a more RPG focused con. So, Gamehole, we're very excited about. This is our first year going as a booth, so this will be fun. And then 1 week later is VoltCon, which is the Voltron gaming convention, Voltron General Convention. So Catalyst is going to have a small booth there. We're going to be talking about the Kickstarter, which is going to be live by then because it's launching October 8th. So gosh, there's a lot coming, a lot to do. So come swing by, check it out, say hi and play with us. We're excited for all of the things. Before
that's incredibly diverse and exciting for the fall. That's great.
Yeah. con season really, from Adepticon until the end of October, it's really busy. And then we've got the little straggler of PAX Unplugged in the beginning of December. And then but other than that, November through February is largely quiet. So I'm personally looking forward to taking a break and hibernating and actually getting work done. So that'll be fun. Overlords in Training Kickstarter. So for those who didn't back it, so this is Randall Bill's son, 17-year-old son Kenyon, designed his first game, did the art for it, did everything. And that was launched on Kickstarter last year. And all of the shipment arrived at Randall's house. The Bills decided they wanted to fulfill it themselves. And they got it all out before Randall left for Europe. So I think there's one or two straggler items or straggler orders that might be still looked into before we get the final backer update out there. But it fulfilled within about a week. It's a very small Kickstarter, like 24,000 or something like that. Dollars, not backers.
I say that would not be a small number of backers. No.
Yes. So, but that one's done, and we're really excited about that, and happy for Kenyon. And so next year, Overlords in Training should be out at general retail. So we're pretty excited. Voltron Kickstarter. I mentioned this already. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in chat for you guys. So this launches, I have so many windows open. This launches on October 8th. And I just went to Alliance Open House, which is a retailer trade show, and I went to Universal Retail Show in Toronto for Canada. And it went really well. It was interesting because in terms of the two RPGs with Frostpunk and with Voltron, people were interested in one or the other. Like, people would go up and go, ooh, Voltron, or ooh, Frostpunk, but it was never both. But they're both using the same system. It's our new dice core system. Jordan, have you heard about this at all?
I have not. No, I don't know that system.
So basically how it's going to work is, it's more complex than this, but I'm going to give you the short summary. You're going to have 3 dice for all of your rolls. So you're going to have a base D8. Then let's use Shadowrun as an example. Let's say you're going to shoot me. And so you use firearms as your skill and agility as your attribute. Let's say you're not very agile. We'll give you a D6 for that. But you're great with firearms, so we'll give you a D10 for that. Then based on how your character's created and situations, you might get upgrades or downgrades. So if you have wired reflexes,
step up and step down dice. Right?
Yeah, if you have wired reflexes, you could choose any of those 3 dice to upgrade from a D8 to a D10 or a D6 to a D8. But I could say, hey, well, you're shooting me in a snowstorm, so you're going to have a downgrade for that. So you could have the 2 cancel, or you could choose to upgrade one die and downgrade another. So you're constantly subbing out your dice pool and changing the statistical. Oh
yeah, you change the chances of probability quite dramatically when you start doing those kind of things. Absolutely. But I don't know. I mean, can you really get into a game that doesn't involve at least 100 D6s being rolled? I mean,
ooh. So I have a record for you, Jordan. So I got to play Shadowrun on stage for World of Shadows at Gen Con, and I had B. Dave Walters played, and he decided he was going to summon a Force 18 spirit and edge the roll. So my record die roll now is 42 dice.
Oh my god.
He got up and he walks around does a lap around the stage and goes, I love Shadowrun. Awesome. So yeah, please check out the Voltron RPG. There will be 2 books on Kickstarter. You can get a book. The rules are the same, but you can get the lore and all the flavor in one book for the old 80s version, or the new Netflix version, or get them both. And
that's cool.
Yes, there will be vehicles. So, and there will also be a board game that will be releasing along with the Kickstarter as well. So, so much.
Yeah.
Cool.
Even though I'm kind of, not sure what to think about Kalos doing another giant robot game. But,
we're cheating.
Besides that, Voltron's cool.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. All right. So other than that, two more announcements for you guys. So Runefire, we talked about this. I can't remember. I think we announced it last year at PAX Unplugged. We have a partnership with Paizo and Pathfinder. So if you remember the Shadowrun Crossfire and the Dragonfire board games, Runefire is the Pathfinder skin for Crossfire. So that will be launching on Kickstarter in tandem with Paizo in January. So we're getting a pre-launch page link up soon, so I'll probably have that for you by next week. But Randall's been working really hard on the development for that one. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm excited. So there's Runefire, and then finally, October is not only the month of cons, it is the month of Kickstarters. So in addition to Voltron, so Catalyst is running the Voltron Kickstarter. For one of our partners and friends, Kevin J. Anderson, you might know him from, writing the Dune novels since the first trilogy, and he's written for Star Wars, he's done Twilight Zone, he's done so much. Prolific science fiction author. He is releasing a new Dan Shamble book. He's been releasing these about once a year on Kickstarter. But this time there's also going to be a Dan Shamble puzzle and a board game produced by Catalyst for the Dan Shamble game or Dan Shamble series. So it's going to be it's the game overall is called Storybook Battles, and it's a 12v12 card game. But what I'm really excited about for the future of this is that you can sub it out to fight any other Storybook Battles game that we release. So let's say that we were to do a Voltron one. The Dan Shamble people could fight Zorkon, and you can sub them out to fight whoever you want to fight. So we're pretty excited for the crossover capabilities there.
Yeah, that's really fun.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun back in the day at WizKids with that, and with all of the Click series, right? Being able to take Marvel up against DC, and then bring in other movies and comics and so on. When you have a base system like that, it's really fun to be able to mix it up.
Absolutely. Now I need to hunt down that link because I have way too many windows open for the Kevin J. Anderson Kickstarter, but I'm going to look for that. But meanwhile, I want to kind of throw it over to you, Jordan, in terms of like how did the legacy all begin? Like, how did BattleTech and Shadowrun and Crimson Skies and everything else, like, how did your brain do this, and how did you make it happen?
Wow, that's kind of a broad question. I mean, I usually attribute it to psychedelic drugs, but actually I never really took drugs, so I can't really do that. Too much of a control freak.
Fair.
No, I mean, severe dyslexic as a kid, so you tend to, live a lot in your imagination. Voracious consumer of media, originally just, film and television because I wasn't reading, but then at 16, as I was a junior counselor in summer camp, I got introduced to this brand new game that no one had ever heard of that just came out that year in Wisconsin, which is where I was, called D&D. And one of the counselors brought it to the summer camp I was working at, and we started playing it, and like mind blown. I was like, okay, that is what I want. But I want to do that. I want to be involved in that. I want to make, play these games, make these games. Had a little problem though. It was all set in the world of Tolkien, which I had no idea what that was, because this was several decades before Peter Jackson was going to make those amazing movies. So like Tolkien became my C. Dick and Jane run, so that was my entry to reading, was working my way through those books, which is why I still haven't forgiven him for those songs or those descriptions of the hills so often. But besides that, it was quite an intro. And then, drove to Lake Geneva. I went to go buy my first copy of D&D. At the time, the only place in the world to buy it was Gary Gygax's house. So I went there. The first floor of the house had been converted into the store for TSR. And Dave Arneson was manning the store on the day me and my friends got there. And so we bought like 7 copies, which was a big sale, like for the year it came out. And so he said, "Why, I can run you guys on an adventure if you want." And we're like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." So we went into the kitchen, and Dave ran us on this incredible adventure. Um, so the hook was set pretty deep, and never recovered. Let's just so I just that was it. I was gonna waste my life making these things. So
That's awesome. Oh wow. So years later, I don't want to. I almost said years and years. I don't want to
I'm
throw
old enough. You can say you can
throw
say
the
decades
shade.
later, and it still works
So
for me.
it's the 40th anniversary this year of BattleTech and the 35th of Shadowrun. So with BattleTech especially, last year's Kickstarter doing the 25,000 backers, being in
Yeah.
Target stores and Barnes and Noble, and the worldwide love and appeal of it. What is it like to see it kind of come back into this resurgence and be part of something that is now so widespread and loved?
Yeah. It's very humbling. Yeah, when I first designed came up with the game, I didn't anticipate it being around 4 decades later, for sure. Even though I should joke that like in the scene, like in Back to the Future, laying there in my 20s and the ghost of Randall appearing before me, telling me, you should create BattleTech so that later I get to travel all over the world having people play it. uh, so anyway, yeah, no, it is really quite humbling, and I've had really the pleasure of coming back to it and working on it, years after years, over the course of its history in different ways. Right, obviously starting with the original board game, then creating the BattleTech Centers, which was a very different kind of exploration of it. The Mech Warrior series of video games, a Mech Commander series of video games, and then then more recently, uh, working on BattleTech at Harebrained Schemes, and I think all these things kind of work synergistically. I mean, I think the tabletop and the video games, we've always been very collaborated with each other to try to make a cohesive whole of all the different parts between the novels and the comics, and at one point the television show and the video games and the toys and all of that. So it is just really gratifying to see that that after all these years, a couple people give a shit. So.
That's awesome. And so in addition to not just the creative lines that you've worked on, but you're also kind of a serial entrepreneurist. And so there was, gosh, what did it start with FASA, or was there something else?
Yeah, no, yeah, FASA was the first company, and then Virtual World Entertainment that did the BattleTech and Virtual World Centers. Then FASA Interactive, which did the video games, which brought me out here to Seattle and Microsoft, where and I became creative director for Microsoft Entertainment and oversaw the launch of Xbox as creative director for that.
Wow, I
Um,
didn't know that.
I get around, you know. Um, yeah, and then we after leaving Microsoft did WizKids, with Mage Knight and all those Hero Clicks and Pirates of the Spanish Main, etc. Um, oh God, well, it's a long list. I don't know. And then 42 Entertainment, where we did the ARGs for the launch of Steven Spielberg's movie AI, which actually I did that when I was at Microsoft, and then launch of Halo 2 and all the Dark Knight movies and stuff. So those were a lot of fun.
So am I
And
gonna
on
have
and
to
on
go
and on.
back and watch the
You know,
credits for your name to scroll up?
we actually are in the credits of the Spielberg film. Yeah,
Wow.
we're listed as puppeteers. You know,
Awesome.
so so yeah, that was a lot of fun. Anyway, so yeah, it's been I often find that I come up with an idea, and if I can't get anyone to make it, then I have to go start a company to make it. Um, and so I often find myself in the garage with a bunch of really dedicated people, trying to make something special or change the world in a very small way. And that's where we are with it with Endless Adventures now, right? I went back to the garage after doing a really large augmented reality project with of Walmart, with all people, and then wanted to get back to doing gaming again, and so put together a small team, and that's where we are.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to transition into Endless Adventures and Sea of Legends. So I played at the beginning of the episode for you guys the a clip of the trailer for Sea of Legends, and that's launching on Kickstarter.
October 8th. So we'll be sharing the spotlight with Voltron, it looks like. We were trying to go earlier, but we just aren't going to quite make it. So yes, I think we're gonna launch October 8th.
Awesome. I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you guys. Tell us a little bit about Endless Adventures and Sea of Legends.
Yeah, thank you. So Endless Venture started about 3 years ago, and we initially focused on working to create a no-code video game authoring tool set. So at my Hairbrain Schemes, which is among the companies that I've started, I designed the tools there that we built all the Shadowrun games with. And I wanted to kind of really supersize those and make it so that you could make really interesting, deep narrative and tactical games without having to have engineers involved in the creation of the gameplay. So we set out and only focused on doing that for a couple years now, and now that tool set is really robust, now we want to make our first big game with it, and Sea of Legends is the first one we're going to do. It's based on a tabletop game that my eldest son Zach did a couple years ago. He's had two very successful Kickstarters for that franchise, and I just loved the world building and the kind of art style that they created. And I have a penchant for pirate games anyway, kind of runs in the family. Having done obviously Crimson Skies, which are aerial pirates, and Pirates of the Spanish Main, and there are pirates in Shadowrun, and there are pirates in in BattleTech, and I was totally up for doing another pirates game. And what's going to be, I think, what I'm really excited about it is, well, all right. So where did the inspiration for it come? Well, Zach had a great board game, and then I always loved Sid Meier's Pirates, which was a game originally came out about 40 years ago, and then there was another version about 20 years ago. Systems driven, open world, wander around, kind of create your own pirate career, but with a dynamic world going on around you. And your actions affected that world, and of course the actions of the factions affected your opportunities. And so I wanted to kind of start with a basis like that, and then layer onto it a lot more storytelling, because I love telling stories. And I hang out with a lot of writers who love telling stories. So we wanted to do a lot more storytelling inside of that, and add a lot more tactics. The original Sid Meier games were kind of more Twitch oriented in terms of how combat was resolved, and I wanted to do a more tactical sense of that. So we have isometric, turn-based tactical combat for your boarding actions and battles, and then we started thinking about, well, what kind of combat resolution system we wanted to do, and we had like tons of fun ideas of wacky kinds of, not just wacky, but cool and wacky kinds of abilities, and we started to realize, oh, that's way too many to put into kind of a traditional RPG setting. So we started playing with deck building mechanics. And a good friend of mine is Justin Gray, who is the designer of Ascension, and so he's been really helpful in helping us kind of get our heads around how to take our deck building ideas and bring his years and years of experience in deck building and find something that creates very accessibility, gives us a huge range of kinds of capabilities for the different characters. So yeah, that was a rambling kind of answer.
No, that's awesome. I'm going to share real quick. You're going to still be able to hear us, but you're going to not see our faces for a minute. I'm going to share the cover image for Sea of Legends. So describe to me, because I just got to read through your Kickstarter, get a sneak peek. So this is a video game that's also a card game that also has like some systemic where if you make certain choices or take a certain path, then some of the factions will change how they interact with you and things like that. How does this work?
Okay. Well, so my rambling may have been a disservice. Let me kind of touch on some of the basics.
Yeah.
So, the kind of core game loop, right, is that you've got you're a pirate captain and you have a ship and you can sail around our kind of warped version of 17th century Caribbean, right? So by warped, I mean we've got this, the Spanish. We start with the Spanish and the English and the islands that they control and the battles between them. But then we introduce initially one's kind of supernatural faction called the Dread Tide, which are undead conquistadors out for revenge,
I like that
mistakenly
image.
having drinking from the or drink one of those words. I don't know. English
They have
again.
drunk. They have.
They have drunk. Yeah, I don't know from the fountain of youth, and actually what it did is just turn them into zombies forever, or kind of skeletal zombies forever. So they're pissed. Um, and then we also have kind of the other initial kind of supernatural one is we've got the cult of the Kraken, which is this group that's going around trying to get the Kraken to rise and cause chaos in the world, kind of related to what you would see in Cthulhu in that regard, only Kraken based. So that's what I mean by it's a warped version of the Caribbean. But you can sail around, go to any islands you want. But what you're really out there looking for is ships to attack, right? Because you're a pirate, and so you're looking for ships to plunder. When you find a ship that you want to attack, you sail up to it, and then you engage in boarding actions, right? And so the boarding actions are isometric tactical combat. The cards come in the use of within the use of how you're using your abilities for the tactical combat. So you've got kind of mundane move and shoot, and then you've got kind of more specialty abilities of swing on the halyards and magic bullets or whatever.
And those abilities are all on the cards that you're collecting.
That's right. They're all on the cards, right?
I see. Okay.
Exactly. So you've got a deck of cards, which you're managing over the course of the game. Because when you've got cards that are from your character, from your captain character, and then when you start hiring crew, those crew also bring cards and their special abilities to the deck, right? And so as you go into a battle, you choose which crew are going to come with you, and then that establishes your deck for that battle, right? And then you can upgrade your cards and your crew members' cards by following narrative quests. So all sorts of different kind of narrative hooks for what quests to do to augment your crew. And sometimes because in a deck building game, it's not always adding cards you're trying to do. Sometimes you're trying to remove cards. So your crew might show up with this great gunner, but he shows up with a pretty dud of a card, which he's carrying around as a curse, for instance. So he has a cursed card, and so you can then follow a narrative quest to remove that curse from him, and then you remove that card from your deck, that kind of thing. So you have this kind of RPG management, but it's reflected in the adding, removing, and upgrading of cards in your deck.
Huh. Right? Okay.
When you go to a port, if you go to a friendly port, there you can sell the plunder that you've captured from ships and buy supplies, information, treasure maps, magical artifacts, fun things like that. You can upgrade your ship or buy a new one. You can hire crew members, as we mentioned. You can say goodbye to crew members. Importantly, sometimes you'll need to share profits with crew members. Otherwise, you have to watch your back for a mutiny. And if you've gained enough notoriety, you can call on the governor of the island to make alliances with the faction. This would be meaning kind of moving from a pirate to a privateer.
Ooh.
Privateer is aligned with a government so that you don't attack. If you've aligned with the Spanish, you don't attack Spanish ships, you go attack English ships, but then you get the use of all Spanish ports for all of your trading and repairs and everything else, right? And so you can then work your way up through that, through the Spanish Navy as a kind of outside adjacent force. Or you can decide to stab them in the back, and because you finally, you were only pretending to be allied with them till you found out the route of their famous black ships, which were the ones that carried all the gold. And then you attack that ship, and then trust me, you're no longer aligned to the Spanish. So you can play those any kind of way you want. And there's uncharted islands where you can drop anchor and bury your treasure. You may have gotten a map to another pirate's treasure, which you can dig up. And you can explore for ancient ruins and the gold and magical artifacts that they hold.
Cool.
And then, as I mentioned, kind of all through this, you're working to manage your deck and upgrade your characters, and with the goal of eventually, becoming either depending how you want to chart your own course, either rise up through the navy of the faction you've aligned with, become the most infamous pirate around with who shows no quarter to anybody, or just as likely end up on the bottom of the ocean or at the end of a hangman's noose.
That's so you can die in the game too.
Oh yeah, you can die and start over. Yeah, it's
awesome.
This is what we want. We've designed the campaign to be really, really replayable. With especially with all the kind of choices you can make and the dynamic natures of the factions, and the fact that, especially if we hit some stretch goals and we add more and more, kind of supernatural factions who'd be able, and also human factions. You can make choices about which ones of them are in any one playthrough. So you have a widely variable place replayability there. So we're looking at the kind of a playthrough only being like 8 to 10 hours, so you can actually get through it without having to become a lifestyle, and then go play it again and have totally different outcomes.
That's awesome. I just wondered if we flash back 40 years, if you had ever said that about BattleTech. Just absolutely a lifestyle. Awesome.
So what's funny to think about is like when I first designed BattleTech, it was a light casual game. That's what it was considered in the marketplace, because we were in a very different kind of grognardy place in the market, back in the early 80s. But yeah, it was light and casual. You were in and out in only 4 hours. I mean, I was like, that was nothing. That was like, getting a snack. I mean,
so
no.
With Endless Adventures, Sea of Legends, coming to Kickstarter October 8th, are there other plans that you want to talk about, like other games that are coming, or what does the future of Jordan Weisman hold?
I've never been able to predict that. In fact, my wife, who has been my creative partner in many endeavors until she intelligently retired a couple years ago. But the on-running question through our 40-year career was like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And so we still say that because I still don't know. No, I think for us, for Endless Adventures, we have two focuses. One, and they're plenty. One is Sea of Legends, right? We want to make a great game there. And then that game is 100% moddable because we built it in our no-code tool. Backers who are at the kind of mod access level will be able to do anything they want with that game. Take it apart, change characters, change dialogues, change any of the settings, and have at it however they want. They'll also be able to make all their own games, right? Which is I think the other big part for us eventually is we release we either late this year or beginning next year release the platform, right? Is to empower people to make all their own games from scratch, as well as work from the foundations of the games we're creating.
Cool. That's awesome. Wow. All right. So more coming from Jordan Weisman. If you love his work, the stuff that he's done, this is into the combination of story, game, and video game, which he has a proven track record of at this point, I think. So I do want to hand it over to the chat for questions. I know my mods have been prepping the Q&A doc. I just need to find where I pulled it up. But anything else you want to say to encourage people to push that link and go support the Kickstarter?
Gosh, what can I say? I think just that as I think most people are aware, it's a pretty challenging point in the video game industry at the moment. And the hard for small studios like ours, especially when we're trying to make an old school game, which means you only buy it once and then you play it as many times as you want. Publishers are really very focused on things that have much higher, what they call LTV, lifetime value for customers. So ways to have people keep paying for the games they're playing. So that's why this kind of title is just, not that attractive to publishers. But we're hoping it's attractive to players and that they'll help us get it made.
Awesome. All right. Well, I just opened up the questions. Thank you, mods, for helping me out again, as always. And there's a bunch of questions for Jordan already. I'm not surprised. So let's get right in. What inspirations, this is from the Brand, what inspirations did you draw from to come up with Shadowrun and BattleTech?
Well, each has its own little origin story. BattleTech came from being at a trade show. I think it was in Texas. I don't remember. But this was way back when games were way too small to have their own trade shows. So we were at toy shows or hobby shows, and games would kind of fit into both. And so this was actually hobby trade show. So it was like hobby shops that were coming to buy new RC planes and model kits and everything. And there was a small handful of us trying to get hobby shops to carry board games. So we were at that show, and a guy was importing model kits from Japan. And in this case, they were little small scale model kits from Pilgrim and Crusher Joe, because these shows had been discontinued, and the Japanese manufacturer just kind of dumping them onto the marketplace. So he had bought a bunch and was importing them, and I was blown away by the art of them. I thought they were just super cool. And so I said, well, if I buy, a bunch of these, can I use them, as playing pieces in a game? And we corresponded with the studio that he would bought them, through, and they said, sure. So we did that. So I built the original version of Battle Droids before it was BattleTech.
Ooh.
Featured two plastic model kits as the playing pieces for the game. So that's where it originally came, and it was a fun. I just had fun putting it together quickly. Worked with Steve Peterson, a couple other people on writing. I came up with kind of the outline of the fiction. Anytime I'm writing a world, I steal it from history, because what a better place to steal from than history? Millions of people working to kill each other are very inventive. And so I was always really fascinated with technological retrograde periods in history. And one of those was, of course, after the fall of Rome, and so in the Roman successor states. So that's what I based, the original BattleTech fiction on, was that period of technological retrograde, as you went from a centralized government into all of these warring states, all trying to reclaim the glory that once was Rome, and basically moved that to space as the foundation. So that's where that one came from. Shadowrun. I was reading a bunch of I'm not even sure they were calling it cyberpunk yet, but it was kind of the dark near future dystopian fiction that was coming out from Gibson and a bunch of other writers, and I was really into it. I guess they were calling it cyberpunk, or they came too soon after. So I was working on an RPG set in that environment, and then Artel Sorian published Cyberpunk, and I figured, well, if it's not very good, I'll just keep doing mine. But it's Mike Pondsmith, and he usually, I don't know if he's ever done anything that's not very good. So it was great. It was really a good game, and I was like, I don't want to be the second Cyberpunk game after Pondsmith. So I shelved it for a little bit, but it kept coming back to me, and I started thinking about, well, what are the themes that underlie Cyberpunk? Right? It was this whole, and as I kind of boiled it down, what I came to was that Cyberpunk is about the dehumanization of humanity, right? Both at the macro level, where we've given up on governments that theoretically are trying to be good for their citizens, and instead just have corporations that are only good for their shareholders, and in the micro level, where we've determined that our own physicology isn't enough to be competitive. So we're installing huge amounts of technology in our bodies in order to be competitive, to thrive in this dystopia. So I was like, well, how do I create a contrast to that? And I was like, well, maybe if we went to, the essence of nature and what nature's all about, and contrasted that to this concept of destroying nature and moving away from nature. And so I thought nature could be expressed through the concept of magic, which is why originally in Shadowrun, the whole premise was that you had to have your neural system in place, because your neural system is basically the antenna for magic.
Right.
And as you corrupted that, you then corrupted your own capability to access what it was built for. At the time, there was all the DNA was a brand new thing, and there was all this kind of discussion of junk DNA, which now we know is bullshit. There is no such thing as junk DNA. But those days, we thought most DNA didn't really do anything. And I was like, well, nature probably wouldn't do that. So nature must have used that to express what this being looks like when magic is present. And so I was like, well, that's what all that unknown DNA stuff is for. And then I needed a way to figure out why magic, came and goes from the earth. And my father was always a huge fan of Mesoamerican cultures and archaeology. So I grew up surrounded by tons of these books, and so I was very, very familiar with the Mayan calendar and the concept of the Mayan calendar called the long count. And I was like, that's perfect. Just going to use that as a sine wave that maps the ebb and flow of magic. So
That's awesome.
that's how that one came together.
Cool. Cool. I like those inspirations. Takeo Kurita asks, at the time when they were designed, was there a discussion about naming one mech Mad Cat and another one Mad Dog, but one from clan perspective and the other from inner sphere perspective?
I don't remember Mad Dog being presented as a counter to Mad Cat, but I wish we had. That's wonderful. That would have been very fun.
Awesome.
So no, I don't remember that one.
Awesome. Cool. 117 Aster asks, is there any hope for ever unifying the BattleTech IP under the same roof for tabletop video games, TV, and movie? Would it just cost all the money?
I think it requires something like Elon Musk to get rational and then spend his money. Both of which seem unlikely at this point. But no, I kind of doubt it. It's actually only gotten a little worse. It's gotten subdivided even more recently as as Topps sold off WizKids into various pieces. So I don't think so. I mean, I do look back on those decisions and cringe at some of them. I mean, they were necessary at the time to fund the things that I was trying to do, but I just never really anticipated the mess that they would become. So yeah, that's fun. It kind of, yeah. Somehow I would label it as a regret, but also I know without it, I wouldn't have been able to do all and design a lot of the things that came afterwards. So I don't know. It's back and forth, but it has made it very difficult in to be able to do the kind of concerted effort you can see in IP and other cases, which we can't really do with these IPs now.
Yeah. Big Kahuna asks, excuse me if it's silly, but what's your favorite mech?
I've never heard that question before. So I get that question a lot, and I always say it's equivalent to asking me which is my favorite son, which they all know they are. So, there you go. I don't know if I have a favorite mech. I certainly have some mechs that stand out in terms of where they were, the role they played in the development of BattleTech overall. And the two that probably stand out the most was the Atlas. Because I remember the day that Dwayne Liu sent me the first drawing of the Atlas, and I was like, this is awesome. We're going to be able to create our own mechs that are just as cool or better than the ones we started with. And so that was very exciting to me. It kind of really nailed the aesthetic of what we wanted BattleTech to become. And then the other one was actually the Mad Cat. Unfortunately, not the Mad Dog, but the Mad Cat, which was created out of the necessity of the enormous graphical limitations we had when we created the first generation of cockpits for the BattleTech Center. And it was all pre-rendered sprites that were then being put together using all sorts of interesting cheats that we were doing at the time. But it meant that we could only have so many torsos, so many legs, so many arms in memory, and then we had to assemble mechs out of them. And that's not the way that the BattleTech Inner Sphere fiction was written, right? Where they were these kind of handcrafted things handed down through generations. So I needed to create a new faction, society, race, however you want to phrase it, that would build their mechs that way. And thus the clans were born. Mother is the, difficulty is the mother of invention. And so that's where the clans came from as a response to a graphical limitation in the BattleTech cockpits.
Awesome. Takeo Kurita has a two-part question about Sea of Legends. What will the art style be of the game? We'll start there.
So I think the art style is how would I describe it? It's a little cartoony,
It's
and very lighthearted and fun. I mean, lighthearted is a key word for the game. We really want it to be fun.
is the cover
And not
image a good representation? I can
yeah
share that
yeah
again.
the cover image is a very good representation. And the video has a lot of good representation. I mean, it's more concept arty in terms of what it than the eventual one, but it's definitely along those lines of what we're trying to go to, and part of that is to inspire again that kind of lighthearted nature, callbacks to anything from like Guy Labush from Monkey Island, or some of the more fun pirate expressions over the years.
Awesome. And then the second part of that question is, maybe you said it, but will it be completely turn-based or also real-time in some aspects?
So sailing around the Caribbean will be real time. So because you're covering large spaces and chasing ships and so on, so that'll be real time. When you get to combat, that will be tactical and turn based for the crew battles, whether boarding ships or in town or whatever land battles you're doing. Romance, of which is a big component of the game, optional. I've asked some people have asked me, do I have to, romance characters? No, you don't. But for those of us who like the pirate, the Errol Flynn era of pirates, of Captain Blood and so on, romance is definitely part of the genre. So I want to make sure that it's there. That is not turn based. That's conversational, and quest and inventory based. So in terms of gathering and giving of gifts and understanding who you're talking to. In the trailer, we didn't show this part because but when the Kickstarter trailer comes out, there's a little example of romancing the governor's daughter, and you've given her this bouquet of flowers without having done your homework to realize that she's incredibly allergic, and so she just starts sneezing, and it just does not go well for you.
I like that. And Jordan mentioned before the show, guys, that as the trailer gets released with their partners and stuff like that, he'll keep sending me assets. So
Absolutely.
Each week, if I get more and more, I'll keep sharing updated trailers with you and images and stuff like that. So awesome. So please chat. Keep any questions for Jordan coming in. There's a couple of other questions that I'll try to rapid fire through here. As we start to wind down. The Brant asks, will the Mercenaries paint set be released in the CGL store? Yes, it will. It's due this month in September. I can't remember the exact release date, but I do know that we've been having a couple of technical difficulties with our online store where we push the button to go live and then it doesn't. So we have to kind of follow up and tweak things and get it fixed. So we have a couple of things that'll be releasing soon, but I did poke Talon about getting that up there again. So yes, it will be available on the Catalyst store. Let's see. Big Kahuna asks, is there any way to get art prints for official BattleTech art, like the Battlemaster from the Creative Field manual? Back at Adepticon, we did a one-off print of some high quality art pieces. I can't remember if they were posters or on canvas or not, but we're definitely open to that, and I'll pass your feedback on to Brent, our art director. I'm actually going to just copy and paste it. Brent from Tuesday Newsday. Boop. So we'll see what he has to say. If he gets back to me while we're on, I can let you know. But if not, we'll have to release that separately. But at least he might start thinking about doing that more. Wargriz asks, when will the second Star League pack have its general release? I can give you, let me open up. Oop, no, don't take that. That's my notes. Let me take a look. Again, everything could change, and I know that release dates just got pushed because of fulfillment. But I think Star League was not part of that, so it should stay where it is. I just have to spot it in this very long list of BattleTech items here. Let's see, October. November. Oh, Second Star League Assault Lance Force Pack. November is when it's slated for. As of right now. Lauren said in response to art, Brent wants to know if we can sell art prints from our store. We have done so. We just don't have them available at the moment. Well, there's feedback for you. There you go. 117 Aster. Any idea when the downloads page will feature record sheets for the new SLDF, Force Packs, Mercs Box, etc.? I'm going to type that to them too, because I don't know that answer. But I do know, I know there's been some questions here and there about the MUL. I mentioned this a few weeks ago on Tuesday Newsday, but our two devs that are working on the MUL are, one is unfortunately having some pretty serious medical issues and has had to step back for quite a while. But the other one got also serious, got pneumonia, and he's on the upswing of it. He's still got a real persistent cough, but he's kind of in and out now as he's recovering, so he should be back to work soon, and as soon as their health recovers, we'll be able to move that forward. I passed the record sheet question to the chat, the group chat for the directors. Lauren's the only one looking at it right now. He said it might be a Randall or Ray question, and Randall is asleep in Budapest right now, so we'll have to come back to that. And then Edwin Lucas asks, are there plans for a reprint of Shadowrun's 2nd edition? It really depends on sales for the 1st edition reproduction. I will say that, like, we didn't get a file on that. It's all been hand scanned. Our artists have had to, like, spruce it all up. It was a hellish project and a hell of an undertaking. If sales merit it, where it's like, man, we just can't pass this up, then we'll absolutely consider that. I just know it was a lot of bandwidth for our art director to have to manually scan each page of that and get it to a reproductive quality. So unknown as of right now, but if you're a fan, tell all your friends to go get Shadowrun 1st edition, which is on the Catalyst store now. Let's see. I think that's the majority of the questions I have here. Time for one more, Dave, if there's anything else that's come in late. But otherwise, we'll throw it at Jordan if there's any last minute one that comes in. But in the meantime, don't forget, there's lots of calls to action today about Kickstarters. So the Voltron Kickstarter, October 8th. The Kevin J. Anderson Kickstarter that we're doing a game for Dan Shamble, is October 15th. And then also on October 8th is Jordan's Sea of Legends Kickstarter. Anything else you want to say, Jordan?
No, just thank you for the time today, and thank you all for the questions. It's always fun to talk about the past, and even more fun to talk about the future. So hopefully you'll come join us over on Sea of Legends after backing Voltron. Come over and back us and help us bring a new world to life.
Awesome. A couple last minute questions here. We have one more minute.
I'm ready.
So Prussian Havoc asks, what inspires and fuels your gaming today?
Okay. Two things. One, my sons. All of them have made the mistake of following me into the creative industry. The elder two, Zach and Nate, are game designers and have been designing some great stuff. And it's really fun to work with them on things, especially as we adopt each other's work and so on. So that's really exciting. And the youngest one, Lucas, is a composer and 3D modeler, and it's been a blast working with him on Sea of Legends as well. So that's, I mean, it's always great when you get to work with your kids like that. That's super exciting. Something Lauren and Randall and I share is that we've worked all of our children, and they really are capable of getting, having normal careers. And what else? I mean, same things that I always have. I love reading, and media, and I read a ton of history, and those are always inspiring to me. Um, and I think also, always just looking at how, what can we do in our own small way to make the world a little bit better place. I mean, part of the reason that I am so focused on Sea of Legends being lighthearted and fun is because we're facing a lot of things that aren't lighthearted and fun in real life, and so it'd be nice to have a little bit more levity in our escapism entertainment. So
Thank you for that. And last question, we'll shoot this one. You've worked mostly on digital products since 2014's Golem Arcana. This is from Red Feather Report. Do you have any tabletop projects coming along as well?
I I threaten to get back on the tabletop often. And I got to kibitz a little bit with Zach when he was working on his game, and Nate on many of his games calls me, and we get to kibitz a little bit, but their ideas are always better than mine. I do think that I will get back to some tabletop stuff in the future. I have things that are sitting in notepads and that I'd love to make one day.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, Jordan. And please feel free. We've talked, actually, Jordan might be using this link as well on the Kickstarter to help talk about the project. So please support Jordan. Please follow the Kickstarter, and we'll keep watching for all the cool stuff that you're doing, Jordan. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much.
Have a good day, everyone.